I was completely conscious when my son looked me in the eyes and said, "We're selling your house and putting you in a nursing home." He thought I couldn't understand him. He thought the stroke had taken my mind along with my voice. He was wrong. I heard every word, felt every betrayal, and silently vowed that somehow, some way, I would make them pay for what they were doing to me. This is my story of betrayal, awakening, and the silent rebellion that saved my life. Subscribe now and comment where you're watching from, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. The sound of my water glass shattering against the hardwood floor was the last thing I remembered before darkness took me. Thanksgiving 2023. My dining room filled with the scent of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie. My son Michael argued politics with his wife Vanessa, while my 16-year-old granddaughter Emily texted under the table. Sarah, my daughter, kept checking her watch, eager to leave for her friend's gathering, though I suspected it was really the casino calling her name again. My right arm suddenly felt numb. Strange. I tried to speak, to ask for help, but my words tangled in my brain, refusing to form. The room tilted sideways. The water glass slipped from my fingers. "Mom?" Michael's voice sounded distant, underwater. I tried to stand, but my right leg buckled. Emily screamed. Someone called 911. When I woke in the hospital, the fluorescent lights burned my eyes. Dr. Bennett, a neurologist with kind eyes and methodical hands, explained I'd suffered an ischemic stroke. "Your cognitive functions appear intact, Mrs. Williams," he said, addressing me directly rather than Michael, who hovered at the bedside. "The damage primarily affected your motor cortex and Broca's area, your speech center. You can understand everything, but speaking and movement on your right side will be challenging." I tried to respond, to thank him for speaking to me like a person, but only a small grunt emerged. "With intensive therapy, there's potential for improvement," Dr. Bennett continued, "though I can't promise a full recovery at your age." Michael's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at the doctor. "Bottom line, Doc, what's her prognosis?" Dr. Bennett frowned slightly. "Your mother is still very much present, Mr. Williams. Her comprehension seems unaffected. She can hear and understand everything we're saying." Michael nodded absently, already typing a response to his message. 3 weeks later, Michael wheeled me through the front door of my colonial home in Connecticut, the house where I'd raised my children, mourned my husband, and expected to live out my days. Rita Morales, a home health aide with gentle hands and a quick smile, would come 3 times weekly to assist with my care. That first evening home, I lay in my bed, listening to Michael and Sarah in the hallway, thinking I was asleep. "Mom's medical bills are just the beginning," Michael whispered. "Her long-term care will deplete her savings within 2 years." "What about the house?" Sarah asked. "It must be worth at least $500,000. Frank says the power of attorney gives us options. We need to be practical about Mom's finances." "What's her predicted lifespan in this condition?" Sarah's clinical tone froze my blood. "We need to make practical financial decisions." I lay motionless, tears sliding silently down my cheeks. My own children discussed liquidating my life while I lived it. In that moment, something hardened inside me, a seed of determination taking root. That night, as moonlight spilled across my bedroom floor, I stared at the ceiling and made a silent vow. I would find a way out of this prison. I would reclaim my voice, my home, my life. They thought I was an empty shell. They would learn how wrong they were. January 2024. 2 months imprisoned in my unresponsive body. I'd become a keen observer, cataloging every betrayal from behind unresponsive eyes. Rita came Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On her days off, care fell to Michael or Sarah, who performed their duties with mechanical efficiency, always checking watches, always hurrying. Today, Michael entered my bedroom clutching papers, wearing his important business face, the same expression he used when telling his daughter that her dream of studying social work instead of business was impractical. "Hey, Mom." He perched on my bed, careful not to wrinkle his pressed slacks. Beautiful January day, freezing but clear. I blinked once. Rita had established this as my signal for yes, though Michael rarely noticed such subtleties. His phone vibrated. He frowned, silenced it, then cleared his throat. "Mom, I need to discuss something important. I know you might not fully understand, but I need to explain some changes." My heart hammered against my ribs. I dreaded this moment since overhearing their hallway conversation. The company's facing serious difficulties, he continued, not meeting my eyes. The Sherman contract fell through, and we're over-leveraged on the new development. We need liquidity fast. Through the window, a cardinal landed on the oak branch outside, a flash of defiant red against the gray winter sky. I focused on it as Michael delivered the blow. Mom, we need money, so we're going to sell your house and put you in a nursing home. The words struck like physical blows. My sanctuary, my independence, my connection to Thomas, and the life we'd built, gone with a single sentence. It's for the best, Michael continued, misinterpreting my silence as confusion rather than rage. You need specialized care, and this place is too big to maintain. Frank's already found a buyer who'll give us a fair price, and Sunshine Valley has an excellent reputation. A fair price, as if my home, where I'd taught Emily to bake, where Thomas had drawn his last breath, where my books lined floor-to-ceiling shelves, could be reduced to square footage and market value. The sale will help save the company and ensure Emily's college fund remains intact. You'd want that, right? To help secure your granddaughter's future? Using Emily against me. A new low. When Michael finally left, promising to handle everything, I focused every ounce of determination on moving my left hand. My right remained useless, but my left had shown minimal function. I visualized the neural pathways, remembered Dr. Bennett explaining how the brain could sometimes reroute signals after a stroke. I thought of Thomas holding my hand through labor with Michael, squeezing through the pain. I channeled that decades-old determination. My pinky finger twitched, barely perceptible, but real. I tried again. Another small movement. When Rita arrived that evening and noticed the minute motion while taking my blood pressure, her eyes widened. "Did you just move your finger, Mrs. Williams?" I kept my expression blank. This small victory needed protection, a secret weapon in my silent rebellion. As Rita adjusted my blankets before leaving, a realization crystallized. I needed allies. I needed time. And most of all, I needed to fight back with the only weapons available to me: patience and intelligence. "Good night, Mrs. Williams," Rita said, turning off the lamp. In the darkness, I moved my finger again, testing its obedience. A small movement, a beginning. March 2024. The house sold faster than even Michael anticipated. From my wheelchair positioned by the bay window, I watched strangers evaluate my home like butchers sizing up a carcass. The real estate agent, a woman with too bright lipstick and calculatedly sympathetic eyes, spoke about great bones and potential while directing attention away from the minor repairs Thomas had plied. I caught snippets of conversation between Michael and Robert Grayson, the buyer, as is condition, quick closing, reasonable accommodation for needed repairs. Robert was Michael's golf partner, a connection that should have raised questions about fair market value. Through strategic eavesdropping during Michael's phone calls, I learned my house, worth at least $600,000 by current market standards, sold for $420,000. Michael justified the 30% discount as necessary for a quick sale and considering needed repairs, vastly exaggerated in the documentation. My power of attorney, originally intended only for medical emergencies, had become the instrument of my financial dismantling. Frank Reynolds, our family attorney for 30 years, and Thomas's former friend, had manipulated the document's scope. During one visit, I overheard him reassuring Michael, "The court is overwhelmed with elder cases. As long as we have documentation from Dr. Marsden about her incapacity, nobody will question your authority." Dr. Marsden, not Dr. Bennett, who had clearly documented my intact cognition. The substitution was deliberate. When a social worker named Diane Matthews attempted a home evaluation, Michael presented carefully selected medical records, emphasizing my physical limitations while omitting my cognitive assessments. I watched powerlessly as they dismantled my life piece by piece. Sarah took my grandmother's silver service, claiming I'd promised it to her. A blatant lie. Michael pocketed Thomas's watch collection, pieces meant for Emily's future children. Family photos disappeared into boxes, some marked storage, others simply vanishing. The day before the move, Michael and Sarah argued in the kitchen while Rita helped me with lunch in the dining room. "You already took the silver," Michael hissed. "The pearls were supposed to be split between you and Emily." "Emily doesn't need pearls at 16, Sarah countered. "Besides, you're hardly being equitable with Dad's watches. That's different. I'm storing those safely." In your safe. How convenient. Their bickering over my possessions, as if I were already dead, ignited something fierce within me. That night, lying in my bedroom for the last time, I focused on my left hand, continuing the exercises I'd been secretly practicing. I could now curl all 5 fingers slightly, minimal progress to an observer, but to me, revolutionary. The next afternoon, I was wheeled through the automatic doors of Sunshine Valley Nursing Home. My new room contained a hospital bed, a laminate dresser, a small television, and beige walls stripped of personality. They'd allowed a few photographs, my wedding quilt, and a small bookshelf of classics. A pathetic fraction of my library. "You'll love it here, Mom," Sarah said, checking her watch. "Everyone seems so nice." Michael nodded, already edging toward the door. "We'll visit every weekend." Their weekend visits became bi-weekly, then monthly, each shorter than the last. I tracked their patterns, noting how Michael checked his phone constantly, how Sarah's eyes darted around as if searching for escape routes. I also tracked the staff, identifying potential allies. Most treated me as furniture, adjusting, cleaning, medicating with mechanical detachment, but 2 showed promise. Dr. Harris, a physical therapist who spoke to me rather than about me, and a night nurse whose name badge read, June. At night, after the hall lights dimmed, I practiced moving my fingers, curling them incrementally more each day. Small victories invisible to everyone else. My rebellion had begun. Financial abuse of seniors has reached epidemic proportions, the television anchor announced during the afternoon news. Last year, over $3 billion was stolen from elderly Americans, often by family members. My heart raced as familiar images flashed across the screen. Documents signed under duress, homes sold without consent, bank accounts drained by those claiming to help manage finances. June Carter, the night nurse who'd started taking a special interest in my care, noticed my reaction. Instead of changing the channel, she turned up the volume slightly. "That story got your attention, didn't it?" she asked quietly, studying my face with unusual intensity. I kept my expression neutral, a skill perfected over months of forced passivity. June pulled up a chair beside my bed, positioning herself so we faced each other directly. "Mrs. Williams, Eleanor, I've been watching you for weeks now. Your eyes track movement precisely. You focus on specific speakers. You react emotionally to certain topics." I remained still, uncertain where this was leading. "My grandmother had a stroke similar to yours," June continued, her voice low. "Her doctor said she was mentally gone, but I knew better. I could see her awareness trapped inside. No one believed me, not even my own family. They sold her house, divided her possessions. By the time I found a specialist who confirmed she was cognitively intact, most of her assets were gone." My pulse quickened. "Was this a trap? A test?" "I believe you're in there, Eleanor," June said, her eyes intent on mine. "Blink once for yes, twice for no. Do you understand me?" I hesitated, then blinked once, deliberately. June's intake of breath was sharp. Again. "Is your name Eleanor Williams?" One blink. "Were you a professor of literature?" One blink. "Has your cognitive function remained intact since your stroke?" One blink, as tears welled in my eyes. "Oh my God," June whispered. "I knew it." She grasped my hand gently. "Are your children taking advantage of your condition?" One slow, deliberate blink. June's expression hardened. "Did they sell your house without your true consent?" One blink. Over the next hour, through our rudimentary communication system, I conveyed the outline of my situation. June listened, occasionally wiping away tears of her own. "We need to be extremely careful," she warned. "If your son suspects anything, he could transfer you somewhere else immediately. We need more evidence and a solid legal strategy before confronting him." She squeezed my hand. "I'm going to help you, Eleanor. First, we need to document your actual cognitive state and establish more reliable communication. Then, we'll find legal help." For the first time since the stroke, hope flickered to life. The next day, June brought Dr. Harris into our confidence. As the facility's physical therapist, he had legitimate reasons to work closely with me. "Your initial neurological reports from Dr. Bennett indicate potential for partial recovery," he explained, after June revealed our communication breakthrough. "I've been saying for months that your therapy regimen is inadequate. Now I understand why you haven't shown improvement. You've been hiding your progress." I blinked once. "Smart," he acknowledged. But now we need documented evidence of your capabilities. I'll intensify your official therapy while conducting additional off-the-record sessions. June will help. We'll create a paper trail of gradual improvement that won't raise suspicions, June added. Meanwhile, I'll research elder law specialists. We need someone who understands financial exploitation cases. That evening, after June's shift ended, Dr. Harris returned with a tablet. This is a cognitive assessment app designed for stroke patients with limited motor function. It will document your comprehension and reasoning abilities. The assessment confirmed what we already knew. My cognitive functions remained intact. Dr. Harris saved the results to a secure cloud server rather than the facility's system. Perfect baseline evidence, he said, smiling. Now let's work on giving you more physical tools to fight back. For the first time in months, I fell asleep not to thoughts of helplessness, but to carefully laid plans. My silent rebellion had found its first allies. Your house sold again, June announced, placing a real estate magazine on my lap, listed at $675,000 by Robert Grayson Realty, sold within 2 weeks. My blood pressure spiked so dramatically that the automated cuff alarmed, bringing a staff member running. June smoothly explained it away as a machine malfunction, but the rage coursing through me was real enough. A $255,000 profit after minimal cosmetic improvements, money that should have been mine, money that could have provided proper care while keeping me in my home. Through our improving communication system, now upgraded to a letterboard since I could reliably move my left index finger, I spelled out FRAUD. Absolutely, June agreed, photographing the listing for evidence. But proving it requires establishing a paper trail connecting your son to this Robert Grayson beyond their golf club membership. The opportunity came unexpectedly during Michael's monthly visit. He left his phone on my bedside table while stepping out to take another call on his work cell. June, changing my sheets, casually glanced at his screen when a text notification appeared. "It's from Robert Grayson," she whispered. "Offshore transfer complete. Check account C. Use code phrase from golf game for verification. Should I take a picture?" I blinked once, emphatically. June quickly photographed the screen, then continued making my bed as if nothing had happened. When Michael returned, his forced cheerfulness couldn't mask his distraction. "The company's finally turning around, Mom. That cash infusion really saved us. You'd be proud of how I've managed everything." I maintained my blank expression, letting him believe I understood nothing while June quietly observed. After he left, she showed me the photo. This is exactly what we needed, evidence of hidden financial transactions between them. Meanwhile, Dr. Harris's intensive therapy began showing results. I could now reliably move my left arm, turn my head, and produce simple vowel sounds. We carefully documented my official progress at a much slower rate than my actual improvements, creating a timeline that wouldn't trigger suspicions. June had been researching elder law specialists and identified a promising candidate, Martin Chen, whose practice specifically focused on financial exploitation cases. "He's got an impressive track record," June reported, "and he offers free initial consultations. I think we should contact him." I spelled out WHYHELPME. June considered this. "Good question. Let me investigate him more thoroughly before we reach out." 2 days later, she returned with surprising information. Martin Chen has a personal connection to elder abuse cases. His grandmother was exploited by a caregiver who drained her accounts. He switched from corporate law to elder advocacy after that experience. This personal motivation reassured me. Too many lawyers saw only billable hours rather than justice. June drafted a letter to Martin, carefully outlining my situation without including identifiable details that could be traced back to us. We need to establish contact securely before sharing specific evidence. While waiting for Martin's response, we received unexpected news. Emily, my granddaughter, had been asking to visit me alone, without her parents present. Michael had reluctantly agreed to drop her off the following Saturday. "This could be significant," June said. "Emily might provide additional information about your son's financial activities." The day of Emily's visit arrived. When she entered my room, her eyes widened at the stark institutional setting, so different from the comfortable home she'd known. "Grandma," she whispered, taking my hand, "I've missed you so much." I squeezed her hand weakly with my left hand, a response I would have hidden from Michael or Sarah. Emily gasped, "You can squeeze my hand. Dad said you couldn't move at all." This moment of decision arrived sooner than expected. Could I trust my 16-year-old granddaughter with my secret? The alternative was to continue the charade, losing a potential ally. I squeezed her hand again, deliberately. "Can you understand me, Grandma?" she asked, eyes wide. I squeezed once for yes. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I knew it," she whispered. "I told Dad you were still in there, but he said I was just seeing what I wanted to see." She leaned closer. "They're keeping things from me, but I've been listening. Dad used your house money to buy a vacation property and invest in some new development. And he took my college fund. He said it was temporary, but I found bank statements showing the transfers." My brilliant, observant granddaughter. I felt a surge of pride amid my anger. "I want to help you, Grandma," Emily said fiercely. "Tell me how." With painful slowness, I spelled out on the letterboard, TRUSTJUNE. My rebellion had found another ally, and with her, new hope. "Your son is planning to transfer you to a lower-cost facility in Arizona," June announced, closing my door to ensure privacy. "I overheard him discussing it with the administrator yesterday. He's claiming it's to be closer to their new vacation property, but it's actually to cut costs by almost $2,000 monthly." Panic surged through me. Arizona would separate me from June, Dr. Harris, and our carefully constructed support system. More importantly, it would remove me from Connecticut jurisdiction, complicating any legal action against Michael. I spelled frantically, WHEN? "He's targeting August, just 2 months away." June's expression was grim. "We need to accelerate our timeline." Martin Chen had responded cautiously to our initial inquiry, requesting more specific information before committing to the case. With this new urgency, June prepared a comprehensive dossier. Dr. Harris's cognitive assessments, documentation of my improving physical condition, financial records showing the suspicious house sale, and photographs of text messages between Michael and Robert Grayson. Emily proved invaluable in gathering additional evidence. During weekend visits, she discreetly photographed financial documents from Michael's home office, including bank statements showing transfers from my accounts to his business and personal expenses. "Dad never logs out of his computer," she reported during one visit. I found emails between him and Robert discussing the consulting fee arrangement. It's clearly a kickback from the house sale. Most disturbing was Emily's discovery about my power of attorney. "Frank Reynolds modified it after your stroke," she explained. "The original document was only for medical decisions, but the new version gives Dad complete control over all your assets. Your signature looks weird on the new document, forged." Another crime to add to the growing list. Meanwhile, Dr. Harris intensified my rehabilitation. By mid-June, I could move my left arm reliably, turn my head in both directions, and produce recognizable, single-syllable words with great effort. My right side remained largely unresponsive, but these improvements represented significant progress. "You're defying typical recovery patterns for someone your age," Dr. Harris noted during one session. "Your determination is remarkable." Determination fueled by rage was a powerful motivator. June secured a protected meeting with Martin Chen by arranging for Dr. Harris to present a case study at a medical conference where Martin was speaking. During a private conversation afterward, they shared my complete dossier. Martin's response was immediate and decisive. "This constitutes elder abuse, financial exploitation, and likely criminal fraud," he stated after reviewing the evidence. "The modified power of attorney appears highly suspicious, especially given the financial benefits your son has derived from it." He outlined a strategic approach. "First, we need emergency legal measures to prevent her transfer out of state. Second, we'll petition for an independent guardian ad litem to represent her interests. Third, we'll challenge the power of attorney based on both procedural issues and evidence of exploitation." His most immediate concern was preventing my transfer to Arizona. "Once she's moved across state lines, everything becomes more complicated. We need to file for an emergency injunction." The legal wheels began turning, but we faced a critical timing problem. The court process would take weeks, while Michael could execute the transfer with just a few days' notice. "We need leverage," June said, after discussing the situation with Martin. "Something that would make Michael delay the transfer voluntarily." Emily provided the solution during her next visit. "Dad's hosting a huge client reception at the new lake house in July. He's invited everyone important to the business. It's all he talks about. His big chance to show everyone the company has recovered. An idea formed. Through careful letterboard communication, I outlined a plan that might buy us the time needed for legal proceedings to unfold. The following day, during Michael's monthly visit, I executed the first step. When he mentioned the upcoming client event in passing, I made deliberate eye contact and produced a sound. Not random, but clearly an attempted word. Michael froze. "Mom, did you just try to speak?" I made the sound again, maintaining direct eye contact. "Can you understand me?" he asked, leaning closer. I blinked once, slowly and deliberately. His face paled. That's just a reflex. The doctors said your cognitive functions were gone." I kept my gaze locked on his, blinking once more. "I need to talk to your doctor," Michael said, rising abruptly. "This doesn't make sense." As he left, June passed him in the doorway, noting his disturbed expression. Once he was gone, she turned to me with raised eyebrows. "Phase 1 complete," I spelled on the letterboard. "Now he's uncertain." The seed of doubt had been planted. Now we needed to nurture it into the leverage that might save me. "Your son has postponed your transfer to Arizona," June announced, unable to suppress her smile. "He told the administrator he wants additional neurological evaluations before moving you." Our strategy was working. By demonstrating just enough awareness to unsettle Michael without revealing the full extent of my recovery, we'd created the delay needed for legal proceedings to advance. Michael's reaction had been exactly as predicted, a mixture of denial, anxiety, and self-protective maneuvering. He'd immediately requested new medical assessments, allowing Dr. Harris to introduce the facility's neurologist, Dr. Patel, who documented clear signs of cognitive awareness and potential for further recovery. Michael looked like he'd seen a ghost when Dr. Patel explained that your comprehension appeared intact, June reported. He kept saying, "But Dr. Marsden said her brain function was severely compromised." Dr. Patel had simply replied, "New assessments suggest otherwise. I'd recommend comprehensive neurological reevaluation before any major decisions are made." Martin Chen filed emergency petitions with the probate court, requesting an independent guardian ad litem and temporary freeze on any transfers of my person or assets. With Dr. Patel's evaluation as supporting evidence, the court scheduled an expedited hearing. Meanwhile, Emily continued gathering crucial information during her increasingly frequent visits. "Dad's freaking out," she reported. He and Frank Reynolds had a huge argument in Dad's study. Frank kept saying, "You told me her cognitive functions were gone." And Dad yelled back, "That's what Marsden said." She lowered her voice. "Dad's worried about the client reception too. He's already invited everyone, spent a fortune on catering, and can't cancel without raising questions about the company's stability." This conflict between Michael's social aspirations and growing legal concerns created exactly the hesitation we needed. I'd made remarkable progress in my recovery, though still far from normal function. I could now speak simple sentences with effort, move my left arm with increasing precision, and even grasp a specially adapted pen to write brief notes. One afternoon in mid-July, I managed to write a complete sentence for the first time. "I understand everything." June photographed it as evidence, then helped me practice for the most crucial performance of my life, the upcoming court evaluation. Martin had warned us that the court would appoint an independent evaluator to assess my condition. This evaluation would significantly impact the judge's decision regarding the guardianship petition. "Be honest about your capabilities," Martin advised through June, "but don't overextend yourself. If you appear stronger than you actually are, they could determine you don't need protection." The delicate balance required careful preparation. Dr. Harris and June developed exercises to help me demonstrate just enough function to prove cognitive awareness while emphasizing my continued vulnerability and need for protection from exploitation. The court-appointed evaluator, Dr. Eleanor Simmons, arrived on a Tuesday morning. A stern woman with penetrating eyes and methodical approach, she spent 3 hours conducting comprehensive assessments. "Mrs. Williams," she said directly, "your son claims you cannot understand complex information or make financial decisions. Do you believe that's accurate?" With careful concentration, I formed my response. "I understand everything. Cannot speak easily, but mind clear." Dr. Simmons nodded, making notes. "Can you tell me what happened to your house?" "Son sold it under value. His friend bought it. And the proceeds from that sale? Took money. Vacation, house, Boat. Dr. Simmons's expression remained neutral, but her questioning grew more detailed. By the end, I was exhausted, but confident she had accurately assessed my condition. The following day, Martin received Dr. Simmons's report. "It's extremely favorable," June reported. "She explicitly states that you demonstrate clear cognitive capacity despite physical limitations, and that there's evidence of financial exploitation requiring immediate court intervention." With this report, Martin filed additional motions requesting expedited proceedings and temporary guardianship assignment to a neutral third party pending full investigation. The judge responded with unprecedented speed, scheduling a hearing for the following week and issuing a temporary order preventing any transfer or additional financial transactions without court approval. When Michael received the court summons, his reaction was explosive. He arrived at Sunshine Valley unannounced, demanding to see me immediately. June intercepted him in the hallway. "Mrs. Williams is resting. Facility policy requires scheduled visits to ensure patient well-being." "She's my mother," Michael snapped, "and I have her power of attorney. I need to see her now." June stood her ground. "I can call the director if you'd like to discuss an exception to policy. In the meantime, perhaps you could wait in the visitor lounge." This small delay allowed her to alert me to Michael's presence. We'd anticipated this confrontation, but hadn't expected it so soon. I made my decision quickly, spelling out LETHIMIN, TIMETOFACEHIM. When Michael entered my room, his customary mask of concern had been replaced by barely controlled panic. "Mom, what's going on? I just received court papers about your guardianship and allegations of—" He lowered his voice, glancing toward the door. "Financial exploitation. This is some kind of mistake." I met his gaze steadily, then spoke the words I'd practiced for this moment. "No, mistake. I know everything." His face drained of color. "You can talk? You understand?" "Always. Understood. Heard. Everything. Selling. House. Taking. Money." Michael sank into the visitor's chair, shock giving way to calculation as I watched the familiar strategic mind reasserting itself. "Mom, you don't understand. The business was failing. I needed capital quickly to prevent complete collapse. Everything I did was to protect our family legacy. My house. My legacy." Each word required enormous effort, but the impact was worth it. "It was temporary," he insisted. "Once the business recovered, I planned to make everything right." "Lies." I managed the word with perfect clarity. Michael's expression hardened. "You have no idea what pressure I've been under. The company your father built was about to collapse. I made difficult decisions to save it, using my money without asking. You were incapacitated. The doctor said your brain function was compromised." "Wrong. Doctor, you chose Marsden. Ignored Bennett." His eyes widened as he realized the extent of my awareness. "This is crazy. You can barely speak. You're in no condition to manage your affairs. Court will decide." Michael stood abruptly. "This conversation is pointless. I'm calling Frank right now." As he turned to leave, I managed 4 final words. "Emily knows the truth." He froze in the doorway, then left without looking back. June entered moments later. "Are you okay? That looked intense." I nodded, exhausted but triumphant. The confrontation had confirmed what we already knew. Michael had deliberately misrepresented my condition to gain control of my assets. The evidence was mounting, the legal machinery was in motion, and for the first time since my stroke, the balance of power was shifting. My silent rebellion was finding its voice. The courtroom felt cavernous from my wheelchair position near the front. After months confined to my room at Sunshine Valley, the space seemed overwhelming, too bright, too loud, too full of competing stimuli. Martin Chen sat beside me, a reassuring presence in his impeccably tailored suit. June had helped me dress in my navy blue dress and pearl earrings, small dignities reclaimed for this crucial day. "Remember," Martin murmured, "you don't need to speak unless directly questioned by the judge. Dr. Simmons's report and our filed evidence will do most of the talking." I nodded, conserving my limited energy for when it would matter most. The week since Michael's confrontation had been a whirlwind of legal activity. Martin had filed additional evidence, including bank records showing transfers from my accounts to Michael's business and personal expenses, documentation of the below-market house sale, and statements from Dr. Bennett contradicting Dr. Marsden's assessment of my cognitive capacity. Most damning was the evidence Emily had provided, emails between Michael and Robert Grayson discussing the consulting fee arrangement that disguised the kickback from my house sale. Her courage in testifying against her father moved me deeply. Michael sat at the respondent's table with Frank Reynolds beside him. He'd aged years in weeks, his confident posture replaced by a defensive hunch. When our eyes met briefly, he quickly looked away. Sarah sat in the gallery, her expression unreadable. She hadn't been named in our initial filing since her involvement appeared less direct, though her knowledge of the situation raised serious ethical questions. Judge Harriet Littman entered, a silver-haired woman with piercing eyes and reputation for no-nonsense efficiency. "This is an emergency hearing regarding guardianship and allegations of financial exploitation in the matter of Eleanor Williams," she announced, reviewing the papers before her. What followed was a methodical presentation of evidence from both sides. Martin presented our case clinically, without emotional appeals. The documentation spoke for itself. Frank attempted to justify Michael's actions as necessary for family financial stability and questioned the sudden improvement in my condition. Mrs. Williams was evaluated by multiple physicians who confirmed severe cognitive impairment, Frank argued. This miraculous recovery seems suspiciously timed to coincide with financial disputes. Judge Littman interrupted. "I have contradictory medical evaluations in the record. Dr. Bennett's initial assessment indicated preserved cognitive function, while Dr. Marsden's later evaluation claimed severe impairment. Dr. Simmons's recent court-ordered evaluation supports Dr. Bennett's original findings." She turned toward me. "Mrs. Williams, I understand speaking is difficult for you. However, I'd like to hear directly from you about your understanding of these proceedings." Martin had prepared me for this possibility. I concentrated on forming clear words despite my impaired speech. "I understand everything," I began, pausing between words. "Stroke, affected, body, not, mind, son, sold, house, took, money, without, consent." The courtroom remained silent as I struggled through each sentence, my determination evident in every hard-won word. Always, aware, heard, plans, trapped, in, body. Judge Littman nodded encouragingly. "Thank you, Mrs. Williams. I appreciate your effort." She turned to Michael. "Mr. Williams, these are serious allegations supported by substantial documentation. Do you maintain that your actions were taken solely for your mother's benefit?" Michael cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I believed I was acting in my mother's best interest based on medical information available at the time. If there were misunderstandings about her condition, they were not deliberate." "Misunderstandings?" Judge Littman's tone sharpened. "You specifically sought a secondary medical opinion after Dr. Bennett's assessment indicated preserved cognitive function. The financial benefits you derived from control of your mother's assets are well documented. This appears far beyond misunderstanding." Frank attempted to interject, but the judge continued. "Furthermore, the evidence suggests the house sale was significantly below market value to a business associate who then provided you personal compensation. These transactions occurred while you held fiduciary responsibility for your mother's assets." Judge Littman reviewed her notes once more before delivering her ruling. "Based on the evidence presented, I am granting the petition for appointment of a temporary guardian ad litem to represent Mrs. Williams's interests. All assets currently under Mr. Williams's control through power of attorney will be frozen pending full accounting and investigation." She continued. "The power of attorney executed after Mrs. Williams's stroke is suspended due to significant questions regarding its validity and application. Mr. Williams is hereby ordered to provide complete financial records of all transactions involving Mrs. Williams's assets within 7 days." Michael's face darkened as the judge continued outlining restrictions and requirements. When she finally concluded the hearing, he leaned toward Frank, whispering urgently. Martin turned to me with a subtle smile. "This is an excellent first step. The temporary guardianship prevents any further financial actions while we pursue full restoration of your rights and recovery of misappropriated assets." As the courtroom began to clear, Emily approached hesitantly, her eyes seeking permission to join me. I nodded, managing a small smile. "You were amazing, Grandma," she whispered, taking my hand. "I was so proud watching you speak to the judge." Michael approached cautiously, his expression a complex mixture of anger, defensiveness, and dawning recognition of consequences. "Mom, we need to talk privately about this. There are explanations," Martin intervened smoothly. "Any communications should go through me as Mrs. Williams' attorney. The court has been quite clear about the concerns regarding your prior interactions." As Michael retreated, Sarah stepped forward, her composure cracking to reveal uncertainty. "I didn't know about the offshore accounts or the kickback," she said quietly. "I thought the house sale was necessary for your care." Whether this was truth or self-preservation remained unclear, but her distancing from Michael was significant. As June wheeled me from the courtroom, I felt a profound shift. For months, I had been an object to be managed, a resource to be exploited. Today, I had been recognized as a person with rights, dignity, and a voice that, however impaired, deserved to be heard. The battle was far from over, but for the first time since my stroke, I was no longer simply a silent witness to my own life. I was reclaiming it, one hard-won word at a time. The garden courtyard at Sunshine Valley offered rare privacy. June had positioned my wheelchair beneath a maple tree, autumn sunlight filtering through leaves just beginning to turn golden red. After the intensity of the past few weeks, this moment of peace felt almost surreal. "The financial investigation is proceeding quickly," June reported, settling onto the bench beside me. "Martin says they've already traced most of the missing funds." The court-appointed forensic accountant had uncovered the full extent of Michael's financial manipulations, approximately $380,000 misappropriated from my accounts, beyond the undervalued house sale. The money had funded not only business investments, but personal purchases, including the Lake Tahoe property, a boat, and luxury travel. "Michael's claiming some transfers were loans he intended to repay," June continued, "but there's no documentation supporting that claim." The legal proceedings had expanded beyond civil remedies to potential criminal charges. The district attorney's office was reviewing evidence of fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. My recovery continued steadily under Dr. Harris's guidance. My speech, while still labored, had improved enough for basic conversation. My left arm function had returned substantially, though my right side remained largely unresponsive. "The neurologist believes you've reached about 75% of your potential recovery for speech," Dr. Harris had explained during our last session. "Further improvements will come, but more slowly. Your determination has already taken you far beyond typical expectations for someone your age." Through June's careful management of my recovered assets, I'd secured a private room at Sunshine Valley with additional therapy services. While not the home I'd lost, it offered dignity and appropriate care while legal matters proceeded. Emily visited regularly, our relationship deepening through this shared crucible. Today she arrived with news about her college applications and the educational trust Martin had discovered, a separate account I'd established years earlier that Michael had been unable to access. "Martin says the trust is completely intact," she reported excitedly. "Almost $65,000 for college expenses. And with the recovery of other assets, there should be enough for my full education." My granddaughter's future, at least, had been preserved. The broader family landscape had shifted dramatically. Vanessa had filed for separation after learning the full extent of Michael's actions, particularly his appropriation of Emily's college funds. Sarah maintained careful distance from both Michael and me, positioning herself as an unwitting bystander rather than active participant. Michael himself faced both legal jeopardy and social consequences. His business reputation had suffered as details of the case emerged, with several clients withdrawing their accounts. The vacation property and boat had been sold to help restore my assets, and he faced potential criminal charges pending the district attorney's decision. Frank Reynolds had surrendered his law license rather than face disciplinary proceedings, effectively ending his legal career. "Martin wants to discuss settlement options," June said, interrupting my reflections. "Michael's attorney has approached him about resolving the civil claims without criminal prosecution." This presented a complex decision. While I wanted recovery of my assets, the question of criminal consequences carried heavier implications. Despite everything, Michael remained my son, the child I had raised, whose first steps and words I had celebrated. "What do you think?" I asked June, who had become far more than a caregiver over these months. She considered carefully before answering. Justice is important, but so is peace. Only you can decide what resolution will allow you to move forward. Emily arrived as we were discussing the options, bringing a chocolate croissant from the French bakery I'd loved before the stroke. A small kindness that nearly brought tears to my eyes. "Dad asked to speak with me yesterday," she said, breaking the pastry into manageable pieces for me. He seemed different, less defensive, more sad. "What did he say?" I managed between careful bites of croissant. "He apologized for taking my college fund, said he got caught in a spiral of financial problems and convinced himself he was protecting the family by any means necessary." She shrugged. "I'm not ready to forgive him, but it was the first time he's taken responsibility without making excuses." This glimpse of potential redemption gave me pause. The satisfaction of criminal prosecution would be real but fleeting. The permanent fracturing of family relationships would linger far longer. That evening, I asked June for pen and paper. A slow, laborious process of writing that took over an hour to complete. The resulting letter to Martin outlined my decision. I would accept a civil settlement that restored my financial assets and established independent control of my affairs, but would not pursue criminal charges if Michael demonstrated genuine accountability and made full restitution. "You're showing remarkable grace," June commented after reading the letter. "Not grace," I corrected her. "Freedom. My choice. Now." The fundamental victory wasn't financial restoration, but reclaiming my agency, the right to make my own decisions for better or worse, rather than having others decide my fate. 2 days later, Martin arranged a carefully controlled meeting between Michael and me, with both June and Martin present. Michael entered hesitantly, the confident businessman replaced by someone visibly humbled by consequences. "Mom," he began, then faltered. I don't know where to start. I had prepared for this moment, conserving energy to speak the sentences that mattered most. "Start with truth. Why?" Michael sank into the chair across from me. "I was drowning financially. The Westridge development failed, taking most of my capital. Investors were pulling out. I convinced myself I was protecting our family legacy, Dad's company, Emily's future." He paused. "But that's not the whole truth." He looked directly at me for the first time. "I also felt entitled to it. After years managing your affairs, the line between your resources and mine blurred in my mind. I started thinking of your assets as family assets under my control." This admission of distorted thinking came closer to truth than I'd expected. "When Dr. Marsden suggested your cognitive functions were compromised, it was convenient to believe that. It made everything easier to justify." "You chose to believe him," I said. "Ignored Bennett." Michael nodded. "Yes, I selected the assessment that served my purposes." This acknowledgement of deliberate manipulation marked a significant shift from his previous defenses. "The settlement offer represents complete financial restoration," Martin interjected. "All misappropriated funds, compensation for the undervalued house sale, and additional consideration for pain and suffering." "I've liquidated everything," Michael added. "The Lake Tahoe property, investments, everything. It still doesn't fix what I've done, but it's the only concrete step I can take." I studied my son's face, the boy I'd raised transformed by greed, then humbled by consequence. The path forward remained uncertain, but it would be my path to determine. "I accept settlement," I said finally. Financial only, relationship different, matter." Relief crossed Michael's face, followed by acknowledgement of the distance still between us. "I understand. Thank you for not pursuing criminal charges. I know I don't deserve that consideration." "Not for you," I clarified. "For me. My choice. My life." As Michael left, I felt no dramatic closure, no neat resolution of complex emotions. Instead, I experienced something more valuable, the quiet satisfaction of autonomy restored. Whatever relationship might eventually rebuild with my son would develop on my terms, not from dependency or manipulation. June squeezed my hand gently. "You've come so far from the woman who could only communicate through blinks." I nodded, thinking of the long journey from helpless rage to deliberate action. The stroke had taken my voice, but ultimately given me something unexpected, the strength to stand firmly in my truth and the wisdom to choose my own path forward. My silent rebellion had succeeded beyond what I could have imagined, not just in recovering assets or holding others accountable, but in reclaiming something far more precious: my voice, my agency, and my right to author the remaining chapters of my own life. December 2024. Snow fell gently outside the windows of my new apartment. The settlement had provided funds for appropriate housing, not my beloved home, which could never be recovered, but a small, accessible apartment near the university where I'd taught for decades. June had transitioned from nurse to companion, occupying the second bedroom and providing assistance as needed. My recovery had plateaued at what doctors called functional communication, speech that required effort but allowed basic conversation. My left side functioned adequately with adaptive devices, while my right remained largely unresponsive. Not wholeness, but a new normal I was learning to navigate. Today marked a significant milestone. The university had invited me to deliver a guest lecture on elder rights and financial exploitation, my first public speaking engagement since the stroke. Dr. Harris had worked with me for weeks to build stamina for the event, while Martin had helped shape the legal aspects of my presentation. As June helped me dress in a burgundy blazer that Emily had selected, I reflected on the journey of the past year. From the moment of betrayal, when I first heard Michael discuss selling my house, to today's return to academia, a complete circle that ended in a different place than it began. The university had arranged accommodations for my condition. I would speak for short segments, with pre-recorded portions filling gaps when fatigue required rest. A speech therapist had helped develop techniques to maximize clarity despite my impairment. Emily arrived to accompany us, bringing a small gift box. "For good luck," she explained, presenting a vintage silver brooch I recognized immediately, one of my mother's pieces I'd thought lost in the house sale. "How?" I questioned, touching it reverently. "I took it from Dad's safe before everything happened," she admitted. "I knew it was special to you, and something told me to protect it." My granddaughter's intuition had preserved this small treasure when so much else had been lost. I pinned it to my lapel, its familiar weight comforting against my chest. The lecture hall filled beyond capacity, students, faculty, and community members drawn by the story that had made local headlines. Martin Chen sat in the front row alongside Dr. Harris and Dr. Bennett, whose accurate assessment of my cognitive capacity had provided crucial evidence. University President Dr. Larson introduced me with unexpected emotion. Professor Williams taught literature in these halls for 35 years, inspiring generations of students. Today, she returns to share a different kind of narrative, one of betrayal, resilience, and reclaimed dignity. When I was wheeled to the podium, adjustable microphone positioned to capture my labored speech, the audience fell completely silent. "Thank you for coming," I began, each word clear despite the effort required. "My story begins with silence." I proceeded through my carefully prepared remarks, alternating between live speaking and recorded segments when I needed to rest. The audience remained rapt as I detailed the systematic exploitation I'd experienced and the journey to reclaim my voice. Financial exploitation of elders occurs when trust is weaponized, I explained, often by family who justify actions as protection. I outlined the warning signs, the legal safeguards, and the resources available to vulnerable adults and their advocates. Not just my personal story, but a roadmap for others facing similar situations. During the question period, a silver-haired woman rose, her voice trembling slightly. "I believe my brother is doing this to our mother now. What's the first step to intervene?" Martin stepped forward to address the technical aspects of her question, while I added the human dimension. Find her allies, someone who sees her as person, not asset. By the lecture's end, I was exhausted but fulfilled. Several attendees approached with similar stories, creating connections that might have remained hidden without this public forum. My private suffering had transformed into community resource. As the hall cleared, a familiar figure lingered near the back, Sarah, who had maintained distance since the court hearing. Our eyes met briefly before she turned and left without approaching. The possibility of reconciliation remained uncertain, a chapter yet unwritten. Later that evening, As June helped me prepare for bed, my phone signaled an incoming message. Michael, sending a brief text. Heard about your lecture today. Mom, I'm proud of you for turning this painful experience into something that helps others. This simple acknowledgement, recognizing my agency rather than my vulnerability, marked subtle but significant evolution. Not forgiveness or restored trust, but a step towards something new. Emily stayed late into the evening, helping organize responses from lecture attendees, seeking additional resources. Several people asked if you would consider writing about your experience, she reported. Martin thinks a book could help reach more victims and families. The idea of transforming my experience into broader advocacy held appeal. Though writing remained challenging with my limited dexterity, adaptive technology offered possibilities. As Emily prepared to leave, she hugged me carefully. You've changed everything, Grandma. Not just for yourself, but for me too. Watching you fight back showed me what courage really means. After she left, I sat by the window watching snowflakes swirl in the streetlight glow. The woman reflected in the glass bore little resemblance to the professor who had suffered a stroke 13 months earlier. Her face showed new lines of effort, determination, and hard-won wisdom. The stroke had taken my voice, my home, and much of my independence. My children's betrayal had taken my sense of safety and family trust. Yet somehow, through that devastating loss, had come unexpected strength, the fierce determination of someone who has seen the worst and survived to tell the story. June joined me by the window, placing a cup of tea within reach. What are you thinking about? I formed my response carefully, each word deliberate and clear. New beginnings, different than planned, but mine to choose. The silent witness had found her voice. The story wasn't over. It was transforming into something I couldn't yet fully envision. But for the first time since that Thanksgiving, when my water glass shattered against the floor, I faced the future not as victim, but as author of my own remaining chapters. The rebellion had succeeded, not by restoring what was lost, but by creating something new from the ashes of betrayal, a life reclaimed, a voice renewed, and a hard-won wisdom that might light the path for others still trapped in silence. The small dinner gathering marked 6 months since the settlement. June had transformed our apartment into a celebration space, with spring flowers brightening every surface. Emily had arrived early to help prepare, bringing a small cake inscribed with a simple message, "To new beginnings." Dr. Harris, Martin Chen, and Dr. Bennett had joined us, the core allies who had helped transform my silent rebellion into vindication. Their presence reminded me how crucial connection had been to my survival and recovery. "I have news," Martin announced as June served coffee. The State Bar Association is implementing new guidelines for power of attorney documentation based partly on your case. They're adding mandatory cognitive assessment protocols and independent review requirements. Your experience is changing the system, Dr. Bennett added. 3 other neurologists have contacted me about proper documentation of partial capacity cases. This ripple effect, policy changes that might protect others from similar exploitation, represented perhaps the most meaningful outcome of my ordeal. And the trust fund model you established for Emily has become a template I'm recommending to other clients, Martin continued. The structure that protected those assets from Michael's access was remarkably effective. Emily, now accepted to her first-choice university with scholarship support supplementing the preserved trust fund, beamed with pride at her grandmother's foresight. "Grandma was always thinking 3 steps ahead," she said, squeezing my hand gently, even before any of this happened. As the evening progressed, our conversation shifted from serious matters to lighter reminiscences. Dr. Harris recounted our early therapy sessions, when my determination to regain function had both impressed and concerned him. "I've never seen anyone your age push so hard during rehabilitation," he admitted. "Sometimes I worried you'd exhaust yourself, but you kept insisting on just 5 more minutes every session." June shared stories of our communication breakthroughs, from basic blinks to letterboards to halting speech. "The day you first clearly said thank you, after I brought your tea, I had to leave the room so you wouldn't see me crying." These shared memories created a tapestry of connection, different from family bonds, a chosen community united by purpose rather than obligation. As our guests prepared to leave, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. June answered, returning with a surprised expression. "Sarah is here. She'd like to speak with you, if you're willing." This was unexpected. Since the court hearing nearly 6 months earlier, Sarah had maintained careful distance, neither apologizing nor defending her actions. Her appearance at this celebration seemed particularly significant. I nodded, curious about this overture. The others tactfully moved to the kitchen, giving us privacy while remaining nearby. Sarah entered hesitantly, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. "I don't want to intrude on your evening," she began. "I can come back another time." "Now is fine," I assured her, gesturing toward the chair across from me. She sat, hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I've been in therapy since everything happened, trying to understand how I could have participated in something so wrong while convincing myself it was justified." This self-reflection surprised me. Sarah had always avoided introspection, preferring psychological explanations that placed responsibility elsewhere. My therapist helped me recognize patterns from childhood, always deferring to Michael's decisions, seeking his approval even as adults. "But that's no excuse." She met my eyes directly. "I knew selling your house wasn't right. I knew taking your jewelry wasn't right. I let financial pressure and Michael's influence override my own moral compass." Her acknowledgement of specific wrongs rather than vague regrets suggested genuine accountability. "I've been making restitution payments to Martin monthly for the jewelry I took and my portion of responsibility for the house sale. It's not just about the money, but creating a concrete record of accountability." This concrete action carried more weight than mere apology. Sarah was backing words with meaningful behavior. "I don't expect forgiveness," she continued, "but I wanted you to know I'm facing what happened honestly now. And," she hesitated, "I miss you, not as someone to manipulate or use, but as my mother." The complexity of emotions, anger, grief, cautious hope, couldn't be easily resolved in one conversation. But Sarah's initiative represented a potential beginning. "Small steps," I offered. "Time will show truth." She nodded, understanding this measured response. "I'd like to visit sometimes, if you're open to it. On your terms, of course." "Possible," I acknowledged, starting slowly. As Sarah prepared to leave, she hesitated. "Michael doesn't know I'm here. He's still struggling to fully accept responsibility, though he's making progress in his own therapy. His pride makes accountability harder." This insight into her brother suggested Sarah's self-reflection extended beyond her own actions to the family dynamics that had enabled exploitation. After Sarah left, the others returned from the kitchen, respectfully not asking about our conversation. Their protective presence reminded me how my circle had transformed, from those who saw vulnerability as opportunity for exploitation to those who recognized it as calling for protection and empowerment. Later that evening, after our guests had departed, June and I sat on the small balcony, watching city lights flicker against the darkening sky. "What are you thinking?" June asked, recognizing my contemplative expression. "Family. Complicated," I replied. "Betrayal. Leaves. Marks. But people can change. Do you think you'll eventually reconcile with them?" I considered this carefully. "Not same relationship. New boundaries. New understanding." The stroke and subsequent betrayal had permanently altered my perspective. I could never again be the mother who trusted unconditionally, who placed family obligation above self-protection. But perhaps something new could grow in that space, relationships based on earned trust rather than assumed loyalty. "What matters most is that you're making these decisions freely," June observed, "not from dependency or vulnerability." This fundamental shift, from object of others' decisions to author of my own, represented the true victory of my rebellion. The financial restitution mattered less than reclaimed agency. As we prepared for bed, I paused before my mirror, studying the woman reflected there. Her face showed new lines of effort and determination. Her posture, though affected by partial paralysis, conveyed dignity rather than defeat. The stroke had taken much, but had given something unexpected in return, a fierce clarity about what truly mattered and the courage to protect it. My remaining years would be different than planned, but authentically mine in a way they might never have been without this crucible. I thought of the lecture I'd delivered and the book now taking shape through dictation and adaptive technology. My story was becoming a resource for others facing exploitation, transforming private pain into public purpose. This unexpected chapter of life contained both profound loss and surprising renewal. Not a happy ending in any conventional sense, but a hard-won victory of spirit over circumstance. The silent witness had found her voice. 1 year after the stroke that changed everything, I sat in my wheelchair on the university auditorium stage, prepared to address the graduating class of the social work program. Emily, completing her freshman year with honors, had arranged this invitation, a chance to share lessons from my journey with future advocates. The dean's introduction emphasized not my academic achievements, but the path of the past year. Professor Williams returns to us not only as a distinguished educator, but as someone whose personal experience illuminates the vulnerabilities and strengths of those you will serve throughout your careers. As I wheeled to the microphone, adjusted to accommodate my seated position, I surveyed the sea of expectant faces. These students would soon work with vulnerable populations, the elderly, the disabled, those whose voices might be dismissed or silenced. Vulnerability, I began, my speech deliberate but clearer than it had been months earlier, is not the same as helplessness. When stroke took my voice, I remained fully present, inside. I described the systematic erosion of autonomy I'd experienced, how medical assessments became weapons, how legal instruments designed for protection enabled exploitation, how family bonds transformed into chains of control. What saved me was not regaining speech, but finding allies who saw my humanity, not my limitations. Throughout the address, I emphasized the structural factors that enable elder exploitation: overwhelmed protective services, inadequate safeguards in power of attorney documentation, medical systems that sometimes prioritize efficiency over thorough assessment. Your work matters because systems alone cannot protect vulnerable people. Human connection, recognition of personhood, these make difference. As I concluded, I shared the most important lesson from my journey. The opposite of exploitation is not protection, but empowerment. Don't just shield people from harm. Help them reclaim their voice. The standing ovation that followed reflected more than polite acknowledgement. These future professionals recognized the principle at the heart of effective advocacy, seeing beyond vulnerability to the complete person deserving dignity and agency. After the ceremony, at a small reception in the faculty lounge, I found myself surrounded by students eager to share their own family stories of elder vulnerability. Their questions revealed genuine concern about navigating complex situations where need for protection must balance with respect for autonomy. Emily brought over a shy young woman who seemed particularly moved by my address. "Grandma, this is Sophia. She wants to specialize in elder law because of her grandmother's experience." Sophia explained how her family had struggled to protect her grandmother from a predatory caregiver while respecting her desire for independence. "Your story helped me understand both sides of that balance better," she said. These connections reinforced my growing conviction that purpose could emerge from pain, that my experience might create ripples of awareness, extending far beyond my personal circumstances. Later that evening, as June drove us home, my phone signaled an incoming message. "Michael, sending a brief text. Heard you spoke at commencement today. Dad would have been proud." This simple acknowledgement, connecting my current advocacy to my husband's memory, suggested evolution in Michael's perspective. Not reconciliation yet, but perhaps movement toward recognition of my complete personhood beyond our fractured relationship. The past year had transformed family dynamics in ways still unfolding. Sarah had begun regular monthly visits, each interaction rebuilding tentative connection through small, consistent steps rather than dramatic gestures. Michael remained more distant, his communication primarily through Emily, though his therapist had recently suggested a mediated conversation when both of us felt ready. Vanessa, separated from Michael but maintaining independent connection with me, had become an unexpected ally, her moral clarity about the exploitation having never wavered despite personal cost. At home, June helped me transfer to my favorite chair by the window overlooking the university campus in the distance. "You've had quite a day," she observed. "How are you feeling?" "Fulfilled," I replied, the word coming clearly after months of speech therapy. Purpose helps healing. The apartment, though not the home I'd lost, had become a space of dignity and choice. Photographs chronicled family history alongside new memories: Emily's college acceptance, my first public lecture, small gatherings with my reconfigured circle of connection. My recovery had plateaued at what neurologists called functional adaptation, not restoration of previous abilities, but establishment of new pathways sufficient for meaningful engagement. My speech remained deliberate but increasingly fluid with continued therapy. My left side functioned adequately with adaptive devices, while my right remained largely unresponsive. Physical limitations remained, but they no longer defined my identity or determined my possibilities. The woman who had emerged from this crucible was not the same professor who had suffered a stroke at her Thanksgiving table. She was both less and more, diminished in certain capacities, but expanded in perspective and purpose. I thought of the book manuscript nearing completion, dictated and shaped over months with June's assistance. Silent witness, reclaiming voice after exploitation, would soon reach others facing similar circumstances, transforming private trauma into public resource. The legal consequences of my case continued unfolding. Martin had established a specialized practice focused exclusively on elder financial exploitation, with policy advocacy complementing individual representation. 2 state legislators had consulted him on potential statutory reforms based partly on lessons from my experience. As twilight softened the view outside my window, I reflected on the journey from that moment when Michael had said, "We're going to sell your house and put you in a nursing home." The rage that statement had ignited had fueled my determination through months of secret rebellion and painful recovery. That determination had not restored what was lost. My home remained sold, my body partially paralyzed, family relationships fundamentally altered. Yet it had created something new from those losses: advocacy that might protect others, wisdom earned through suffering, and most importantly, reclaimed agency over my remaining life. June joined me by the window, placing a cup of tea within reach of my functional left hand. "What are you thinking about?" I formed my response with the careful precision that now characterized my speech. How strange that losing my voice helped me find it more authentically. The silent witness had not only found her voice, she had transformed it into a beacon for others still struggling in darkness. Not a fairy tale ending of complete restoration, but a hard-won victory of spirit over circumstance. Not the life I had planned, but the one I had claimed. My voice, my choice, my truth. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.